People say being adopted is a blessing. Maybe it is, just not for me. My name is Emily Carter. For 20 years, I called the Carters my family. But no matter how hard I tried, I never felt like their daughter. I felt like their servant. Every morning, I cleaned their house. Every day, I worked. Every night, I came home exhausted. And somehow, it was never enough. My sister Chloe got everything she wanted. I got responsibilities and bills, and constant reminders that I didn't belong. Sometimes I wondered why they adopted me at all. But no matter how much life hurt, I couldn't stop. Every evening on my way home, I stopped to see the same man sitting on the same bench. Most people ignored him. I never could. A coffee or sandwich, a few minutes of conversation. That was all it took. Somehow, Alessandro became the best part of my day. What I didn't know was that I had become the best part of his. Some days, I was so tired I could barely smile, but somehow Alessandro always noticed. He'd ask if I had eaten, if I was sleeping enough, if work was getting too hard. Nobody else ever asked me those things. Nobody else seemed to notice when I was hurting, but he did, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt seen. I thought it was nothing. I was wrong. Every evening, he waited for me, and every evening, I showed up. That night seemed no different. I said goodbye, turned around, and walked home. I wish I hadn't, because the moment I reached the front door, I heard my mother's voice. Everything is settled. Harold agreed to the marriage. Marriage? My heart stopped. Then Chloe laughed. He's old enough to be her grandfather. The room exploded with laughter. My hands started shaking. Then my father said something I'll never forget. Once Emily marries him, we'll never have money problems again. In that moment, everything finally made sense. I wasn't their daughter. I was a transaction, and they had just sold my future. The bag slipped from my hands. The laughter inside stopped, and they knew I had heard everything. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. All I could hear was my father's voice. Once Emily marries him, we'll never have money problems again. To them, my future had a price tag, and they had already accepted the offer. I wanted to run, but before I could move, the front door opened. My mother was standing there, and she knew I had heard everything. The next hour felt like a nightmare. They didn't deny it. They didn't apologize. Instead, they told me I should be grateful. Grateful for being sold to a man old enough to be my grandfather? When I refused, my mother slapped me. Then she said something that broke my heart. You owe us, after everything we've done for you. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to earn their love, because I finally understood. It was never mine to earn. That night, I packed a small bag, and I left. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I couldn't stay. My feet carried me through the city, past empty streets, past closed stores, past every place that had ever felt familiar, until I found myself standing in front of the park. And there he was, Alessandro. Even at that hour, he was sitting on the same bench, waiting. The moment he saw me, his smile disappeared. He knew something was wrong. I tried to be strong. I tried not to cry. But the second he asked if I was okay, everything fell apart. I told him about Harold, about my family, about the life they were forcing on me. And when I finished, Alessandro looked angrier than I had ever seen him. Not at me, at them. Nobody had ever been angry on my behalf before. Nobody had ever made me feel worth protecting. Then Alessandro stood up and held out his hand. Come with me. For a moment, I just stared at him because something in his eyes told me my life was about to change. I took his hand and followed him into the night, having no idea who Alessandro Moretti really was.
You are my heart.
I should have been scared. Following a homeless stranger into the night wasn't exactly a good plan. But somehow, I trusted Alessandro more than the people who raised me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking alone. We walked for several minutes without speaking. Neither of us seemed to know what came next. Then I looked at Alessandro. His clothes were worn, his shoes were old, and suddenly, I realized something. Have you eaten? Alessandro looked surprised. Why, you're the one with problems. I smiled weakly. Maybe. But you're still hungry. A few minutes later, we were sharing a meal at a small diner. I used the little money I had left. I didn't think much of it. But Alessandro kept looking at me, like I had done something special. Nobody had ever looked at me that way before. When we finished eating, we stepped back into the cold night. Then another problem hit me. Wait, where are you going to sleep? Alessandro shrugged. Usually, the park. My heart sank. No, you're not sleeping on a park bench tonight. Then I remembered. The bakery where I work. Sometimes the owner lets staff rest there after late shifts. It's not much, but it's warm, so that's where we went. A tiny storage room behind the bakery, flour bags, cardboard boxes, barely enough space for 2 people. I made a bed from old blankets. You take it. Alessandro laughed softly. You made it. You're taking it. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then I laughed too, the first real laugh I'd had all day. But as I lay down, another thought hit me. Tomorrow, my family would come looking for me, and sooner or later, they'd try to force me back. Then a crazy idea popped into my head. I sat up and looked at Alessandro. What if you married me? Alessandro froze, completely froze. I rushed to explain, not a real marriage, just on paper. If I'm married, they can't force me to marry Harold. Alessandro didn't say a word. He just stared at me. Emily, are you asking me to be your husband?
You are my heart.
Emily, are you asking me to be your husband? My heart nearly stopped. Suddenly the idea sounded insane, but I had no other way out. I forced myself to nod. Yes, just on paper. Just long enough to stop Harold. Alessandro stared at me. His eyes searched mine like he was trying to understand everything I was too afraid to say. Then he answered, yes. I blinked. That was it? Just yes? You didn't even think about it? A small smile touched his lips. Maybe I didn't need to. My heart skipped a beat. I looked away first, because holding his gaze suddenly felt dangerous. This wasn't supposed to be romantic. This was survival, nothing more, right? Then Alessandro smiled. You look relieved. I laughed softly. Maybe I am. Honestly, I didn't think you'd say yes. His eyes softened. Why wouldn't I? Because I'm dragging you into a fake marriage. For a moment, Alessandro stared at me. Then he smiled. Emily, you're the kindest person I know. My heart skipped a beat. And you're the most beautiful girl in the world. It would be an honor to marry you, even if it's only a contract. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. No one had ever looked at me that way before. No one had ever made me feel like being chosen, even temporarily, could mean something. I quickly explained the plan. If we got married, my family couldn't force me to marry Harold. Simple, at least in theory. Alessandro listened like every word mattered. Then he asked softly, "What happens after? After the marriage?" The question caught me off guard. Honestly, I have no idea. Alessandro laughed, not at me, with me. And somehow, I laughed too. For the first time that night, the fear inside me felt a little smaller. Maybe because he was there. Maybe because I wasn't alone anymore. Then my eyes drifted toward the blankets. A few old blankets on the floor. That was all we had. One tiny storage room, one makeshift bed, two people pretending this was only a plan. My pulse doubled. Alessandro followed my gaze, then looked back at me. Neither of us spoke. The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer, quieter. Tomorrow we are getting married. But suddenly, the wedding wasn't the only thing making me nervous.
My home.
Tomorrow, we were getting married, but suddenly, the wedding wasn't the only thing making me nervous. I stared at the blankets, then at Alessandro, then back at the blankets. There was only one bed. Well, if a pile of blankets counted as a bed. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then I laughed nervously. I guess this is what happens when two homeless people get engaged. Alessandro laughed, and somehow I found myself laughing too. Eventually, we lay down, side by side, not touching, but definitely aware of each other. Good night, Alessandro. Good night, Emily. I turned away first, facing the wall. My heart was racing. This was ridiculous. Tomorrow we were getting married. Why was sleeping beside him making me more nervous than the wedding itself? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to sleep, trying not to think about him. Neither worked. Then a dangerous thought appeared. Wait, did I like him? No, absolutely not. I barely knew him. Just yesterday, he was a stranger sitting on a park bench, and now he was lying beside me, my future husband. No, stop it, Emily. This is a contract, nothing more. And besides, I'd never slept beside a man before, not once, and now I was sharing a bed with one, a very handsome one. My face grew warm. Minutes passed. Then curiosity got the better of me. Slowly, I turned around, only to freeze. Alessandro was already facing me. My breath caught. "You can't sleep either?" I whispered. He smiled. "Not really." For a second, neither of us looked away. The room felt different. Then Alessandro moved slightly closer. Not enough to touch me, just enough to make my heart forget what it was doing. "Emily." "I'm glad you found me tonight." My heart skipped a beat. At that exact moment, my phone started vibrating. The moment shattered. Mom calling, again and again. 23 missed calls. My stomach tightened. Tomorrow, we'll get married. I whispered it more to myself than to him, but Alessandro heard. And when I looked at him again, he was smiling as I drifted to sleep. I missed the way Alessandro looked at me, like he knew something I didn't. I woke up to warmth. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered. The bakery, the blankets, Alessandro. His face was closer than I expected, too close. My heart panicked before I did. I quickly sat up. "Good morning, Emily." I froze. He was already awake. And smiling. Why was he always smiling at me like that? "Good morning," I mumbled. His eyes were already on me. A few minutes later, we left the storage room together. The morning air felt different. Maybe because today, I was supposed to get married. A fake marriage. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Outside the bakery, Alessandro stopped. "I'll wait for you." My heart did that thing again, the one it only seemed to do around him. I hurried inside before he could notice. The morning was a blur. I couldn't focus. Every thought somehow led back to Alessandro. Then my boss called me into the office. Immediately, I panicked. "Emily, relax. You're not in trouble." She laughed, then handed me an envelope. "I want to thank you. You covered extra shifts. Customers love you." I opened the envelope. Inside was a bonus check. My eyes widened. It was enough for rent, enough for a deposit, enough to finally start over. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then another thought hit me. "Alessandro, can I a few hours off?" My boss smiled. "Go, before I change my mind." I practically ran out of the bakery, and there he was, waiting, exactly where he promised. The moment he saw me, he smiled, and I ran faster. "Alessandro, I got a bonus." His eyes widened. "Really?" I nodded excitedly. "We can do this now." "Do what? Get married?" For a second, he just stared at me, then smiled. A soft smile that made my heart race. "Are you sure?" "No, I'm terrified, but I'm more scared of losing this chance." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Alessandro offered me his hand. Together, together. An hour later, we were inside City Hall. My hands trembled as I signed. Emily Carter, soon to be Emily Moretti. Then Alessandro signed his name. The clerk took his ID, then froze. Her smile vanished. She looked at the card, then at him. "Mr. Moretti? You are Mr. Moretti. This can't be true, sir. You are the most. This can't be real. Sir, you are—" Alessandro cleared his throat. "The homeless man who sleeps across the street." The clerk blinked. Then Alessandro smiled calmly. "We're here for a marriage certificate." The woman immediately lowered her eyes. "Oh, of course." Something about her reaction felt strange. A few minutes later, she handed us the certificate. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Moretti." My breath caught. Mrs. Emily Moretti. The name felt unfamiliar, but somehow not wrong. Outside City Hall, the wind almost blew the certificate from my hands. Alessandro caught it before it could fly away. Our fingers touched, and somehow that tiny touch made my heart race all over again. So, what now, wife? Wife. That word needed to stop affecting me immediately. I laughed nervously. Now we find somewhere to live before I panic and run away. Too late. You're already legally trapped. A few hours later, we found a tiny apartment, small kitchen, tiny living room, one bedroom, and one couch. The moment we walked inside, reality finally hit me. We were married, and now we were living together. Alessandro placed our bags down. "So, ground rules?" I immediately nodded. "Yes, definitely ground rules. First, this marriage is temporary, 1 year, then we divorce." Alessandro nodded calmly. "Okay. Second, no intimacy, absolutely none." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "None? This is still a contract marriage, not a real one." Something flashed across his face for a second. Disappointment. But it vanished quickly. And third, I swallowed hard. "I'm still a virgin, and I want my first time to be to the love of my life, and I don't really know you, so you sleep on the couch. I take the bed. For the first time." Alessandro looked genuinely surprised. Then his expression softened. "Emily, you don't have to explain yourself to me." My heart skipped. I quickly looked away. "Good. Then we're agreed. 1 year, no intimacy, separate sleeping arrangements. And before we divorce, I'll help you find a job." Then Alessandro smiled again. That dangerous smile. "You planned our entire future already?" My face instantly grew hot. I was just being practical. Of course. Wife. The first few weeks of marriage felt normal, too normal. Every morning, I woke up expecting Alessandro to disappear, but he never did. He walked me to work, waited outside when my shifts ended, carried groceries, cooked dinner, and somehow made our fake marriage feel dangerously real. The worst part? I was getting used to him, very used to him. We laughed together, teased each other, argued over stupid things, like whether pineapple belonged on pizza, or why he somehow folded my clothes better than I did. Sometimes I caught myself staring at him when he wasn't looking, and sometimes I caught him staring too. The strange part? Alessandro never once crossed the line. Not once. No flirting, no pressure, no touching unless it happened accidentally. And somehow, that only made it worse, because the safer he made me feel, the harder it became to remember this marriage wasn't real. Some nights, we stayed up talking for hours about life, dreams, random childhood memories. And every single day, Alessandro became harder to resist. One night, I came home late from work. The apartment lights were off. At first, I thought Alessandro was asleep. Then I heard his voice from the bedroom, cold, sharp, nothing like the man I knew. I froze outside the door. I couldn't hear everything clearly. But his tone, it sounded powerful, commanding, like someone used to being obeyed. My stomach tightened. Who talks like that? There was a long silence. Then his voice lowered again. Calm, controlled, dangerous. The kind of voice that made people listen. My heart started racing. That wasn't the voice of a homeless man. Before I could move, the bedroom door suddenly opened. Alessandro froze when he saw me standing there. For the first time since meeting him, he looked nervous. Emily. I swallowed hard. Who are you? For a second, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then Alessandro slowly stepped toward me. And somehow, that terrified me more than if he had lied. The man I married wasn't homeless, and deep down, I think we both knew it now. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about the phone call, or the voice I had heard the night before. Nothing about it matched the man sleeping on my couch. Well, technically, Alessandro wasn't on the couch anymore, because when I walked into the living room, he was already dressed. White shirt, black tie, dark trousers. My brain completely stopped working. I had seen Alessandro look handsome before, but this was unfair. The way the shirt fit him, the watch on his wrist, the confidence in the way he stood. Suddenly, he didn't look like a man searching for a job. He looked expensive. His eyes lifted toward me calmly. Good morning, wife. There was that word again, and somehow, it still affected me every single time. I crossed my arms suspiciously. Why are you dressed like that? Alessandro adjusted his sleeve casually. Job interview. Since when do job interviews look like magazine photo shoots? He laughed softly. Jealous? My face immediately grew hot. Absolutely not. A few minutes later, we stepped outside the apartment. Then I froze. A luxury black car was waiting beside the sidewalk. The driver quickly stepped out and opened the back door. My eyes widened. Please don't tell me that's for you. Alessandro looked calm. Relax. My friend sent it. Friend? He's the assistant to the CEO. He owed me a favor. Before I could ask another question, a sharply dressed man stepped out from the passenger seat. The moment he saw Alessandro, he straightened immediately. Morning, sir? The man instantly stopped himself, then awkwardly cleared his throat. I mean, Alessandro. My eyes narrowed. That was strange. But Alessandro acted like nothing happened. Then he opened the car door and looked at me. I'll see you tonight, wife. And just like that, my heart betrayed me again. A few minutes later, I watched the luxury car disappear into traffic. Meanwhile, inside the car, the playful smile on Alessandro's face disappeared instantly. The sharply dressed man beside him looked nervous. So, who is she, sir? Alessandro calmly adjusted his cufflinks. For the first time, a small smile appeared on his face again. Be careful how you speak about my wife. Your wife? The words echoed through the car. Since when are you married? That morning incident played in my head all day. All I could see is how handsome he was. By the time my shift ended, my
You
brain was
are
exhausted.
my
I pushed
heart.
open the bakery door and froze. Alessandro was waiting outside,
You
leaning
are
casually
my
against the same
home.
luxury car. White shirt sleeves rolled upward, tie
Stay
loosened
here
slightly,
with
looking
me.
unfairly attractive. The moment he saw me, he
Never
smiled, and just like that,
let go.
every suspicious thought disappeared. How was your interview? I asked carefully. Alessandro opened the car door for me. I got the job and I get to go home with the car. My eyes widened. Really? He nodded calmly. Driver, I blinked. You, driving people around? Alessandro looked offended. You think I can't drive? I laughed. No, you just don't look like somebody's driver. His eyes met mine for a second, and suddenly, the air between us changed again, dangerously. Then Alessandro smiled softly. Get in, wife. My heart immediately betrayed me again. A few minutes later, we stopped outside a luxury restaurant. I stared through the window in shock. Drivers don't eat in places like this. Alessandro looked calm. Employee discount. That sounded fake. Very fake. But before I could argue, he gently took my hand and led me inside. The entire restaurant suddenly felt strange. Some people stared, others whispered. Then the manager rushed toward us nervously. Good evening, sir." He stopped himself instantly, then forced a smile. "I mean, welcome." My eyes narrowed immediately. There it was again. "Sir." As we followed the manager, I leaned closer to Alessandro. "Why does everyone keep calling you sir?" For the first time all evening, Alessandro hesitated, then smiled smoothly. Maybe I just look important. That answer somehow raised even more questions. Dinner should have been awkward. Instead, it felt terrifyingly natural. We laughed, teased each other, shared dessert. Then suddenly, a woman's voice shattered everything. Alessandro, both of us turned. A stunning woman stood near our table. Elegant dress, cold, beautiful eyes locked directly onto Alessandro. But the moment she looked at me, her expression changed instantly. Then her eyes dropped to my wedding ring. Her voice turned dangerously quiet. "You got married?" For a second, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The beautiful woman kept staring at Alessandro, and Alessandro kept staring at her, like they already knew each other. My stomach tightened instantly. This was the first person I had ever met who actually knew him. Not the version of Alessandro I knew, not the man sleeping on my couch. The real Alessandro. The woman slowly stepped closer, elegant, beautiful, intimidating, and clearly furious. Alessandro stood calmly, completely unfazed by her presence. Then, suddenly, he looked toward me and reached for my hand. My heart skipped instantly. "Isabella, meet my wife." "Wife?" The woman's expression shattered immediately. "You got married?" Her voice sounded sharp, dangerously sharp. I looked between them nervously, then finally asked the question burning inside me. "Who are you?" The woman let out a soft, bitter laugh. "I'm Isabella, Alessandro's fiancée." My heart stopped. Fiancé? Slowly, I turned toward Alessandro, waiting for him to deny it. He didn't. The silence hurt more than if he had answered. Then Isabella smiled coldly. Interesting. He disappears without a word, then suddenly comes back married. To you, the way she said you made my stomach twist. Enough! Alessandro's voice turned cold instantly. The single word changed the entire atmosphere. Even Isabella looked surprised. For the first time all evening, I realized something terrifying. Alessandro wasn't intimidated by her at all. If anything, she was intimidated by him. Then Isabella laughed again, but this time it sounded bitter. Before I could ask another question, she turned and walked away, leaving silence behind her. Heavy silence. I looked at Alessandro, my pulse racing. Fiancé, the word kept echoing inside my head. Suddenly, I couldn't breathe properly. Without saying anything, I grabbed my bag and stood up quickly. Emily, I didn't stop. I walked out of the restaurant fighting back tears, because the worst part wasn't that Alessandro had lied. It was realizing I had already fallen for him. And suddenly, the truth hurt more than I expected. Somewhere along the way, I had fallen for my husband, but our marriage was fake, and the man I loved already belonged to someone else. I cried the entire way home, not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet tears I couldn't stop, because no matter how hard I tried to deny it, the truth was obvious now. I had fallen for Alessandro. The problem? He already belonged to someone else. By the time I reached the apartment, my chest hurt. I quickly wiped my face before opening the door. But the second I stepped inside, I froze. Alessandro was already there, waiting. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he slowly stepped toward me. Emily, don't! My voice cracked embarrassingly. I looked away immediately. You should have told me. Alessandro ran a hand through his hair. It's complicated. I laughed bitterly. That's what people say when they're hiding things. I never wanted to hurt you. That only made it worse, because somehow I believed him. I turned toward him slowly. Are you engaged? The room became painfully quiet. Then Alessandro answered softly. It was arranged. My stomach twisted. Was? His eyes locked onto mine. I never loved her. For some reason, that hurt even more, because my stupid heart immediately cared about that answer. I crossed my arms tightly. Then why didn't you tell me? Alessandro stepped closer. Because everything changed when I met you. My breath caught. Dangerous. That answer was dangerously unfair, especially now, especially after my heart was already involved. I looked away first. This marriage was supposed to be fake. 1 year, no feelings, no complications. Alessandro's voice softened. Was it fake for you? My heart stopped. For a second, I couldn't answer, because suddenly, I wasn't sure anymore. Then Alessandro stepped even closer, close enough for me to feel his warmth. Emily, look at me. I shouldn't have. I really shouldn't have. But I did, and that was my mistake. Because the second our eyes met, everything disappeared again. The anger, the confusion. There was only Alessandro, only the man I was trying very hard not to love. Then his hand slowly lifted toward my face. My entire body froze. He hesitated for half a second, like he was giving me a chance to stop him. I didn't. His fingers brushed my cheek gently. And suddenly, Alessandro spoke. I think I stopped pretending this marriage was fake the moment I fell in love with you. My heart stopped. The words echoed painfully inside my head. And the worst part? A part of me had wanted to hear them for a long time. But then reality hit me. Hard. He had a fiancé. and no matter how much my heart wanted him, I couldn't survive being hurt again, not after everything I had already been through, not after spending my whole life feeling abandoned, used, disposable. So I did the only thing that felt safe. I forced myself to step back, away from him, away from his touch, away from the feelings destroying my self-control. Alessandro's expression changed instantly. "Emily?" "No," I shook my head quickly. "No, you don't get to say things like that, not when you're engaged." His jaw tightened. "I told you, it was arranged, but you still belong to her first." The words came out more painfully than I intended. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Alessandro stepped closer again. I stepped back immediately. "Don't." That seemed to hurt him. Good, because I was hurting too. This was supposed to be temporary. 1 year. That was the agreement. No feelings, no complications. But somewhere along the way, everything became real. Too real. Alessandro stared at me silently, then finally spoke. "Do you love me?" My breath caught. Dangerous question. Very dangerous, because the answer was yes. Terrifyingly yes. But loving Alessandro felt like standing too close to a fire. Beautiful, warm, and guaranteed to destroy me eventually. So I lied. No. The single word nearly shattered me, because I saw the exact moment it hurt him. But Alessandro didn't move, didn't argue, didn't beg. He just looked at me quietly, like he knew I was lying, and somehow that made it even harder. Then I felt tears burning my eyes again. I quickly looked away. I can't do this, Alessandro. I can't fall in love with someone who's already promised to another woman. My voice cracked completely. For the first time in years, I felt my heart breaking in real time. Then quietly, almost painfully, I whispered the words I didn't want to say. "You should move out. Maybe you should move out." The words hung painfully in the air. For a second, Alessandro didn't react. He just stared at me silently, like he couldn't believe I had said it. Then, finally, he looked away. "If that's what you want." The calmness in his voice hurt more than if he had shouted. Because deep down, I didn't want him to leave. I wanted him to fight for me, to choose me, but how could he? He already belonged to someone else. Without another word, Alessandro walked toward the couch and grabbed his jacket. Every step felt like my chest was being ripped apart slowly. Then, suddenly, he stopped, his back still facing me. "Emily." I closed my eyes immediately, because hearing him say my name like that was my weakness. I meant what I said. My heart cracked even more. "Please don't," I whispered. "Don't make this harder." For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Alessandro finally walked to the door and left. The second the door closed behind him, I broke completely. I slid down onto the floor, crying so hard I could barely breathe, because the apartment suddenly felt empty without him. Too empty. The couch, the kitchen, the silence. Everything reminded me of him, and somehow that terrified me. The next few days became unbearable. Alessandro stopped walking me to work, stopped waiting outside the bakery, stopped teasing me. The apartment no longer felt warm. It just felt lonely, painfully lonely. At night, I kept hearing the front door open quietly, then close again before morning, like Alessandro was still coming back. Just not for me anymore. And somehow, that hurt worst of all. I stopped sleeping properly, stopped eating properly. Even my boss noticed. One evening, I came home exhausted from work. But the second I opened the apartment door, I froze. Alessandro was there, standing in the kitchen, white shirt sleeves rolled up, cooking dinner like nothing had happened. For a second, neither of us spoke, Then slowly, he looked up at me, and my stupid heart immediately betrayed me again, because somehow he still looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. The next few weeks became unbearable, not because Alessandro disappeared, but because he didn't. Every single day, flowers arrived at the bakery, different flowers, different colors, always without a note, but somehow I knew they were from him. And every single day, I threw them away. At least, I pretended to. The truth? I secretly kept every bouquet hidden inside my apartment, hidden like the feelings I was desperately trying to kill. I buried myself in work instead. Morning shifts at the bakery, night shifts at a cafe downtown. Anything to stop thinking about Alessandro. Anything to stop missing him. Because no matter how angry I was, my heart still searched for him everywhere. Sometimes, I noticed a black car parked across the street from the bakery. Other times, I caught glimpses of Alessandro standing far away, watching me quietly, never approaching, never speaking, like he missed me too. But I refused to let myself care anymore, because loving Alessandro felt dangerous now. One afternoon, while walking home from work, I stopped in front of a fashion design college. My chest tightened instantly. For years, fashion had been my dream, the dream I buried while surviving, paying bills, taking care of everyone except myself. Before I could overthink it, I walked inside. A week later, I enrolled. For the first time in years, I was finally choosing myself, not my family, not Alessandro. Me, and somehow, that terrified me too, because for the first time, my future actually felt possible. Then one afternoon, my professor stopped me after class. "Emily, your designs are incredible." My heart skipped instantly. Then she handed me a letter. I opened it slowly and froze. Full scholarship, Paris Fashion Institute. My hands started shaking. Paris? This was impossible. Life-changing. A real chance to finally forget Alessandro Moretti. That night, I sat alone staring at the acceptance letter for hours. Then finally, I made my decision. I was leaving, and this time, I wasn't going to tell Alessandro goodbye. Because if I saw him one last time, I knew I wouldn't be strong enough to leave him behind. The next morning, I quietly packed my things before sunrise. Clothes, sketchbooks, the scholarship letter, everything fit into 2 small bags. Funny, my entire life reduced to 2 bags again. For a moment, I stood alone in the apartment silently. The couch Alessandro used to sleep on, the kitchen where we laughed together, every corner still felt like him. And somehow, that made leaving even harder. Before leaving, I sat quietly at the small kitchen table staring at the divorce papers. My hands trembled as I signed my name, Emily Moretti. The name hurt now, but Alessandro deserved freedom. He deserved his real life back, his real world, and maybe his real fiancé too. I couldn't keep tying him to a fake marriage while I disappeared to another country. So I mailed the papers to him, without goodbye, without explanation, because if I saw him one last time, I knew I wouldn't leave, and loving Alessandro was becoming too painful to survive. A few hours later, I stood alone inside the airport. My passport trembled slightly in my hands. Paris, a new life, a fresh start. No Alessandro, no heartbreak, just me, for the first time in weeks. I finally felt like I could breathe again. Then suddenly, someone grabbed my wrist. "Excuse me." I froze instantly. An older, elegant woman stared directly at me, or more specifically, at my necklace. Her entire expression changed. Shock. Real shock. The woman slowly reached toward the necklace with trembling fingers. "Where did you get this?" My heart started racing. "I've always had it." "Why?" The woman looked like she stopped breathing. Then suddenly, tears filled her eyes. Impossible. Around us, everything suddenly felt distant. The airport noise, the announcements, none of it mattered anymore, because the woman kept staring at me like she had seen a ghost. Then quietly, almost afraid to believe it, she whispered, "My daughter had that necklace the day she disappeared," she said as she removed a matching necklace. My breath caught instantly. "What?" The woman looked at me with trembling eyes. Then slowly, she whispered another word. "Sophia. Oh, my Sophia." Sophia. The name echoed inside my head. The elegant woman stood in front of me crying softly while holding the old photograph. And somehow, for the first time in my life, I finally understood why I never felt like I belonged anywhere. The next few days passed like a dream. I was taken to the Laurent estate, and nothing could have prepared me for it. The mansion alone looked bigger than my entire neighborhood. Luxury cars, private staff, security everywhere. Everything felt unreal, terrifyingly unreal, because suddenly I wasn't Emily anymore. I was Sophia Laurent, lost daughter of one of the richest families in Europe. But even after finding my real family, I still refused to become weak again. So I buried myself in work, in school, in rebuilding myself completely. I enrolled into one of the best fashion colleges in Europe. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't studying just to survive. I was studying to become extraordinary. Years passed. I worked harder than everyone around me. Long nights, sketches everywhere, coffee instead of sleep, failure after failure, until one day, everything changed. One design became popular, then another. Then investors started calling. Eventually, I launched my own luxury fashion brand, Sophia Laurent. The name exploded across Europe, elegant, powerful, untouchable. Within a few years, my company became worth billions. People no longer looked at me with pity. Now, executives stood when I entered rooms. Magazines called me the youngest female CEO in Europe. But through all of it, I avoided one person, Alessandro Moretti. I changed numbers, avoided events, rejected invitations connected to his world, because no matter how successful I became, a part of me still wasn't strong enough to face him again. 5 years later, I stood inside a massive boardroom in Milan preparing for the biggest merger of my career. Another billionaire company, another business deal, another room full of powerful men underestimating me. I adjusted my blazer calmly as the boardroom doors slowly opened. Then suddenly, my heart stopped, because the one man I had spent 5 years trying to forget had just walked into the room. 5 years? 5 entire years. And somehow, the moment Alessandro Moretti walked into the boardroom, it felt like no time had passed at all. My heart betrayed me instantly. One look at him, and suddenly I was back in that tiny apartment, back to stolen glances, late-night conversations, fake marriage papers that stopped feeling fake far too quickly. But Alessandro looked different now, sharper, colder, more dangerous. The soft, homeless man I once knew was gone. This man looked powerful enough to destroy entire companies with a single sentence, and somehow, he looked even more handsome than before, which honestly felt offensive. The boardroom slowly fell silent. Executives stood nervously. Assistants rushed around adjusting documents, but Alessandro never looked at any of them. His eyes stayed locked on me, completely frozen. like he
here
couldn't
with
believe I was
me.
real. For a second, neither of us moved, neither of
Never
us spoke. Then one of the
let
executives
go.
cleared his throat awkwardly. "Mr. Moretti, would you like to begin the merger discussion?" Merger? My stomach tightened instantly. This was his company? Of course it was, because apparently fate enjoyed humiliating me. Slowly. Alessandro pulled his eyes away from me, then calmly. He took the seat directly across from mine. The tension inside the room became unbearable immediately, because everyone else saw a business meeting. But Alessandro and I, we saw 5 years of heartbreak sitting between us. The executive beside me leaned over quietly. "Miss Laurent, should we proceed?" I forced myself to straighten my posture. Professional, cold, untouchable, the same mask I had spent years perfecting. Yes, my voice came out calm. Thankfully, even though my heart was seconds away from exploding, the presentation began. Numbers, contracts, partnership projections. I heard almost none of it, because every few seconds, I felt Alessandro staring at me again. Then suddenly, a document slid across the table toward me. I frowned slightly, until I saw the handwriting at the top. "Still running away from me, wife?" My breath caught instantly. Slowly, I lifted my eyes toward Alessandro, and the dangerous little smile on his face told me one thing immediately. This merger was no coincidence. "Still running away from me, wife?" My breath caught instantly. Slowly, I lifted my eyes toward
You
Alessandro,
are
and the dangerous
my
little smile on his
heart.
face told me one thing immediately. This merger was no
You
coincidence.
are
I
my
quickly closed the
home.
document before anyone noticed, then forced myself to look
Stay
away from him.
here with
Professional.
me.
Stay professional. That was the only thing keeping my
Never
heart from completely collapsing.
let go.
The meeting continued. Executives spoke. Numbers filled the screens. Contracts moved across the table. But the tension between Alessandro and me became impossible to ignore, because every single time I looked up, he was already watching me. Finally,
You
the meeting
are
ended.
my
People slowly left the
heart.
boardroom until only Alessandro and I remained. I grabbed my
You
files
are
immediately,
my
but before I could
home.
leave, his voice stopped me. "Sophia." The sound
Stay
of my real
here
name on his
with
lips nearly
me.
shattered me. Slowly, I turned around,
Never
and suddenly, five
let
years
go.
disappeared again. I looked at him carefully. The expensive suit, the power in the room, the way everyone obeyed him instantly. Then finally, I asked the question that had haunted me for years. "How are you the CEO?" For a second, Alessandro said nothing. Then he slowly leaned back against the table. "Because I always was." My stomach tightened instantly. "Then why were you homeless?" A small, bitter smile appeared on his face. "I wasn't homeless, not really. I disappeared on purpose. After my father died, people around me stopped seeing me as a person. They only saw money, power, even Isabella. Everyone wanted something from me. So I left. I wanted silence. One honest thing in my life." Then his eyes locked onto mine again. "Then I met you." My chest tightened painfully, because suddenly, everything made sense. The bakery, the fake job, the apartment, the way people reacted around him. All of it. I laughed softly in disbelief. So the homeless man across the street was actually a billionaire CEO? Alessandro smiled slightly. Only for a little while. Then his expression softened completely. "But the way I felt about you, that part was always real. My heart betrayed me instantly, because after 5 years, I still loved him exactly the same way. But the way I felt about you, that part was always real. My heart betrayed me instantly,
You
because after
are
5 years,
my
I still loved him
heart.
deeply. The realization terrified me. I quickly stepped back. No. I shook my head immediately. You don't get to do this? Alessandro frowned slightly. Do what? Walk back into my life looking like that? Saying things like that? Like you didn't completely destroy me. My voice cracked embarrassingly. For a moment, Alessandro just stared at me silently. Then, slowly, he reached into his inside pocket. The divorce papers, unsigned. My heart stopped completely. You kept them? Alessandro's eyes never left mine. For 5 years, the room suddenly felt too small, too warm, too dangerous. I stared at the papers in disbelief. You never signed them? Alessandro stepped closer slowly. I told you before, I never wanted the divorce. My chest tightened painfully. Then why didn't you come after me? A small, bitter laugh escaped him. Sophia, I searched for you for 5 years, my breath caught instantly. What? His jaw tightened slightly. You changed numbers, moved countries, avoided every event connected to my world. Every time I got close, you disappeared again. The way he said it, like those 5 years had hurt him too. Then Alessandro looked at me quietly. Do you know how many times I almost walked into your fashion shows? How many interviews I watched just to hear your voice again? My heart was breaking all over again, because suddenly I realized something terrifying. While I spent 5 years trying to forget him, Alessandro had spent 5 years trying to find me. Then slowly, he stepped even closer, close enough to make breathing difficult. You left without saying goodbye. His voice softened painfully. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I looked away immediately. Big mistake. Because Alessandro gently tilted my chin back toward him. And suddenly, the tension between us became unbearable. 5 years disappeared instantly. There was only him, only us. Then quietly, almost like a confession, Alessandro spoke. I've loved you from the moment you brought me that first coffee. I think I've loved you from the moment you brought me that first coffee. My heart shattered completely. Because after 5 years, I still loved him too. For a moment, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. We just stood there staring at each other, like we were trying to recover 5 years with one look. Then Alessandro slowly stepped closer, and this time, I didn't step away. His fingers gently brushed against my cheek, like he was terrified I would disappear again. Sophia. The way he said my name nearly destroyed me. I searched for you everywhere. My chest tightened painfully. Then suddenly, Alessandro pulled me into his arms, and for the first time in 5 years, I let myself hold him again, because somehow, it still felt exactly the same, safe, warm, home. I missed you, I whispered against his chest. Alessandro closed his eyes tightly. You have no idea what those words just did to me. Then slowly, he lifted my chin and kissed me, softly at first, almost carefully, like he was giving me time to stop him. I didn't. My hands immediately grabbed his jacket as he pulled me closer against him, and suddenly, the kiss deepened, slow, passionate, painfully intimate. 5 years of heartbreak poured into one single moment. And when we finally pulled apart, neither of us could breathe properly. Then Alessandro rested his forehead against mine and smiled softly. Come home with me. I laughed weakly through tears. Which home? His eyes locked onto mine. The one I'm building my future in. With you. Then, unexpectedly, Alessandro slowly dropped to one knee. Sophia Laurent, the first time you married me, you were trying to save yourself, but this time, I want forever? He opened a small ring box, and inside was my original wedding ring, the same one from our contract marriage, only now. It wasn't fake anymore. Marry me again, this time for real. I started crying before he even finished speaking. Yes? Alessandro laughed softly in relief, then stood up and kissed me again. 1 year later, I walked toward him wearing white, and the moment our eyes met at the altar, I realized something. I hadn't just found love, I had finally found home.
You are